All right. So the recording will be available, of course, afterwards for those people who couldn't join us this afternoon. So let me tell you a little bit about our facilitator. John Wright is one of our new NMA educational providers. He is president and founder of Simple Leadership Strategies, and he lives in Fort Worth. Over the past year, chapters in the North Texas Council have gotten familiar with John as he has made some presentations at council meetings. John has actually been training managers for many years and developing leaders, he says, for over 30 years. He is a certified seminar leader with the American Seminar Leaders Association, and he's presented in 34 cities in the U.S. and in 9 countries in South America, Europe, Africa, and Asia. He's past president of the Fort Worth chapter of ASTD, American Society of Training and Development. He's a member of the Institute of Management Consultants and the World Affairs Council of Dallas-Fort Worth. John does speak on transformational leadership frequently and provides management consulting services to help organizations improve their culture and improve their results through simple leadership strategies. He's been married to his wife, Karen, for 42 years, and in chatting with him, I learned that they have 4 grown children and 10 grandchildren. Now, I need to advise you that John and his family are on vacation this week, so I imagine some of those numbers, some of those people are with him. But when I asked if he could give us a teaser from his Transformational Leadership Program, he readily agreed. He didn't even bat an eye, even though he's on vacation, and he even graciously offered to do it twice today. So I want to make sure that I say thank you, John, for doing that. So yesterday, Sue Kapler and I were testing things with John, and despite several attempts from multiple locations, we just weren't able to find a place where there was sufficient bandwidth for John to come to you via video. So what we're doing is we're just shifted to plan B. That's what you do. He's dialing in, and I'll be running the slides for him today. Some of you that have been at other webinars probably realize, oh, that could be dangerous, but we'll give it our best shot, and I'll do my best to keep up with John. So without further ado, allow me to introduce our facilitator for today's program, John Wright. John?
Steve, thank you very much for the opportunity and the invitation. Thanks for your assistance getting this ready. And I want to thank everybody that's on the line for taking time out of their day, out of their lunch. This is my passion. It's my life's work. It's my purpose. So I love to do it, and I really appreciate the opportunity to share this information with you. Normally, this is in a seminar style, and it's extremely interactive. So it's going to be a little unusual for me to just kind of speak on this subject. And I'm going to attempt to just cover this in maybe about 30 minutes, maybe give a 30,000-foot view. And if you would be good enough to jot down your thoughts, comments, or questions as we go along, hopefully there will be time on the back half, and then we can make that interactive. Let me start with why we call it the Transformational Leader Manager. When I started business a little years ago, one of my first was in Arizona, and flying back from Arizona back to Texas, sat next to an executive. And just in making conversation, I asked him if he thought his supervisor was a good manager. Not hesitate. He said, yeah, he's a good manager. And then I asked him, is he a good? He did hesitate. And I had experienced something similar. I actually started this journey 42 years ago when I just got out of high school. My very first boss is what I would call a bad boss. And my next boss was a transformational leader, even though I didn't know what that was at the time. But he changed my life, and I wouldn't be doing it today if it wasn't for Jim Yo. So the study of why one supervisor doesn't do a good job and why one is average and why one is exceptional and changes your life just kind of almost an obsession. Studied that for about years, and then 10 years ago. And the title tries to communicate 2 simple things. We hear this question all the time, are you a manager or a leader? Encouraging people to say, this is not a this or that. If you are responsible for people and the budget, you are a manager by definition. They're good. It's the term. But just because you're a manager doesn't necessarily mean you're a leader. Having said that, we've met people and read historical accounts of people who are good leaders, managers. So our first emphasis is that managers must lead and leaders must lead. You are in the organization supervisor to a CEO, you must manage and you must lead. My transformation. Well, we kind of have to admit that a basic definition of leadership is just that somebody follows you, but we know sometimes people follow with Cliff, Jim, Charles Manson. If you look at the result, where do the people end up that do the following? How are they impacted? If it's positive, we're going to say it's transformational. You can call it other things. You can call it inspirational. We like to call it transformational. So here's a broader view of what it means if you're this kind of person. If you're a transformational leader manager, you do two things. The first thing is you achieve exceptional results through people. The second thing is that you change lives for the better. You make families, communities, organizations better. So that's and we've all experienced this. If you have any age to you, you have met a teacher, a coach, maybe a parent or someone else in your family that has made you a better person, and that you still talk about that person 20 or 30 years later. So that's what we're trying to capture in the title of a transformational leader manager, or what we call a TLM. The subtitle, Creating Leaders at Every Level. We're going to make that is every organization's number one objective. We'll call it the first cause. There's actually 4 transformations that we encourage organizations to buy into. Beginning with the end in mind, we would say, if you really want to be successful in any industry, you serve someone and you've got to exceed their expectations. If you do that, not only do they come back, which makes them loyal, but if they not only come back and they bring other people with them, we call them advocates. So the 4th transformation is transforming a customer in. That takes a team. Anything great takes a team, but our research and our experience shows that most people that work together are not teams. They're just work groups. So you have got to transform a group of people that work together into a. That's the 3rd transformation. What supports that transformation is the individual transformation. You need to transform an employee to a partner. That's an unusual term, but we think it communicates that it's an entrepreneurial spirit. When you get an employee to think, speak, act, decide, behave, perform like they are a vested owner in the business, then they're going to be participating in the team and exceed customers' expectations. So your 2nd transformation is employee into partner.
Hey, John, this is Steve. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
A couple of things. What slide do you want me to be on right now? I'm still on number 2, which is your cover slide.
Right. There's 4 levels of transformations, and I began with the last one, which is number 4, which is customer into advocate. Number 3 is work group into team. Number 2 is employee into partner. And number 1 is manager into leader.
All right. All of that is good. We sent you the slides and they're numbered. Which one do you want me to have on the screen?
Oh, we're still on slide. This is just an introduction, Steve. This is just number 2.
That's what I thought. Okay. The reason for that is I'm getting people on the chat. You're obviously on a cell phone and cutting out considerably. So if there's a way maybe to move closer to the window or do something, that might help. And I hate to interrupt the flow of things because you're off to a great start, but I want to be mindful of our customers.
Okay.
So
sure. Let me try to take this over to a window and see if this helps any.
Okay. Thank you, John.
Sure. Okay. So a lot for the big view. Let me. So we got these 4 transformations. I just wanted to stress that all transformations are supported by manager into leader. Now on slide 3, we just have, is that any better, Steve?
Yes, I think it's a little better. Keep going.
Okay, on slide 3, just a little bit about us. I wanted to mention that we have done this leadership transformation training in now 11 countries, and we've done these surveys that show over 3,000 people. 25% of bosses are considered actually to be bad bosses. and only about 40% are considered to be just managers. So that leaves less than a third to be leaders. So there's a big need for people to be transformed from managers to leaders. On slide 4, we have the big picture. Now, what this is, in an effort to simplify any business operation, we have 5 business outcomes that we want to achieve. At the bottom is the culture of the organization, focusing on meeting and exceeding customer expectations, operational excellence, growing customers, and financial performance. On the sides, to the right and to the left, are 2 toolboxes showing that you've got to manage and lead. In the management process, you have the 4 steps of planning, organizing, directing, controlling. Pretty typical stuff. On the left-hand side, you have the simple leadership strategies that we're going to say, if you use these competencies or strategies, how you plan, organize, direct, and control will help you achieve these things. So positive psychology, being trust through character, building confidence through your competence, inspiring action through vision, and emotional intelligence is our toolbox. So slide 5, we have a little quote here that says, when people fail to lead, it's not because they do not know what to do, it's because they fail to do what they know. This is common sense stuff that everybody knows, but very few people do. And that's why 25% of managers are bad bosses and only 30% are actually leaders. Slide 6 talks about change. 3 steps to change, and we ask anybody that participates in any seminar that we do, including this webinar, is to start with themselves, to confront or admit that in one of these areas, they have an opportunity to grow. To contribute, what can they contribute? What could they do? And the 3rd step is commit. What will they do? So we're hoping that everyone on this call, when we're finished, will say, here's one area that I'm willing to admit I can get better. This is what I could do, and this is what I will do. Slide 7. You are what you think about. These changes are, if you believe something different, what you believe drives how you feel about something. How you feel about something determines how you behave, and your behavior is going to determine your performance. What drives what you believe is your thoughts. So that's what we're going to start with in just a second on positive psychology. Slide number 8. What must change? As leaders, we want to set an example. We are eventually going to make an attempt to help individuals on our team, and our organization make a change to get from where they are to where they need to be. And we're going to set an example by admitting that we have a gap, acknowledging that we can do something about it, and to doing something about it. Summarized in slide 9 by Mahatma Gandhi, be the change you wish to see in the world. So transformational leader managers are continuously improving themselves, changing themselves first, and then helping those around them change. Slide 10 begins with our toolkit. Now we're going to say these toolkits have 3 tools in them. Positive psychology, if you're not that familiar with that, I would encourage you to Google that, go online. There's some great information on that. The 3 subsets is positive psychology, focusing on strengths. I'm sure everyone's familiar with the Gallup organization's work. Studied by 30 years, it said that the world's best managers know they can't fix people. They get better results by identifying someone's strengths, giving them the opportunity and the resources to focus on those strengths. That's the first tool in the toolbox of positive psychology. The second set is to recognize that happiness precedes success. So transformational leader managers without being nosy or prying into people's personal lives, take an interest in people's personal and professional happiness because they know that a happy individual does more work. And there's a lot of science that actually can give you numbers on productivity and safety. So they create an environment where people are happy personally and professionally. The third tool in the positive psychology toolbox is the power of gratitude, sincere and honest appreciation. If anyone on this call has never read How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, I would strongly recommend you to read that. It really is a positive psychology handbook, even though it was written in 1937. And under his 3 fundamental ways of dealing with people, one of them is honest and sincere appreciation. And a lot of supervisors overlook that simple point. The second toolbox is earning trust through your character, your commitment, and your confidence. Character is integrity. Integrity comes from a word, the same word as integer. Integer in math means a whole number. So when we deal with people, we deal with a body and a mind, a heart and a soul. And some people are uncomfortable talking about heart and soul, but that's really what we're talking about here. We're talking about heart learning, and we're talking about spirituality. That's all a critical part of integrity, personally and professionally. Commitment is just your passion. Sometimes we all kind of get into a rut, but people will not follow someone or trust someone if their heart's not into it. Sam Walton wrote a great book, and he said he gave 10 rules that helped him become successful. And at the very top of that list was he said it was my commitment. His commitment, his passion enabled him to overcome almost every single obstacle. Third tool in the toolbox for earning trust is confidence. And that's really another synonym for faith. For somebody to trust a leader, that leader has to be absolutely confident that they're going to overcome whatever obstacle they're facing. Examples we give in the course is Washington during the dark days of the War of Independence and Abraham Lincoln. They faced some very, very dark days, but they demonstrated a lot of faith and confidence. So you have to earn trust through character, commitment, and confidence. Steve, am I coming across okay?
I had to unmute myself. Yes, I had to unmute myself.
All right, son. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. We're up to slide 13 there.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was just going to say things
All
are
right.
still some cutting out, but we're getting there.
Okay. Slide number 12. What you do builds confidence. So we're trying to build a case that who you are, what you do, and where you're going. Those are the 3 critical components. We'll show you an overall slide here in just a second. But we've had people work for people, they've been promoted, and some people who work for them wonder how in the world they got that job. They don't have the skills, knowledge, or ability. So you've got to demonstrate technical expertise and continuously improve. That's a skill set. But research shows that only 15% of your success comes from technical abilities. 85% comes from people skills, which is the second 2 tools in this particular toolbox. We call it caring. You can call it people skills, but that is a skill that can be learned, demonstrating that you care about people personally and professionally. The third tool in the toolbox is something separate, the ability to communicate. Expectations, feedback, discipline, appreciation. You can be a caring person and not communicate well. You can be a good communicator and not being caring and not being competent. All 3 of these things are essential. If a supervisor lacks any one of these 3 things, the people following them are going to lack confidence themselves. That brings us to slide 13. Here's a visual of what we're attempting to build. Doesn't look like it, but I like to compare it to a 3-layer cake. The first layer is character. That's what you do to earn trust. The second layer of the cake is competence. That's what you demonstrate to build confidence in other people. The third layer, which we'll talk about in a second, is vision. It's where you're going that will inspire action. The cake pan is positive psychology. My battery is running low, Steve. I'm going to have to go back to this desk. Let me see if I can't find a plug here. We sure had our challenges, haven't we? Okay, the next slide is slide number 14. We're doing 3 tools in the tool set: vision, values, and purpose. We do an exercise in our course, asks people to visualize what success looks like. This is on people's walls all the time, but a lot of people don't really read it. They don't buy into it. And we encourage supervisors to help individuals write out a vision of what it looks like when they're successful. That, if it's done right, that will inspire individuals. Values, here's a simple exercise that we do. Don't always have time to do it here, but I encourage people to make a list of values: trustworthiness, hard work, dedication, commitment, so forth. And after they make that list, they circle the top 3. And the 3 top values. When they analyze and assess their own behavior, they have their own values to give them an opportunity to see if they are living their values. The third thing is the purpose. Why do you do what you do? We have these conversations frequently, and people say, we're here to make money. And that is not a purpose. Something you have to do to stay alive, to stay successful. But a purpose provides meaning, and it gives you a reason to get up and go to work. If you get those 3 things right, you will inspire. And I just want to mention that if you haven't given a lot of thought to that, there's a big difference between motivation and action. And again, like management and leadership, it's not a this or that, it's a this and that. Motivation is something what's in them. Nothing wrong with motivating someone for reward, recognition, or promotion, but inspiration is something different. There's really no reward for that. They do it because it's in their heart. They do it because it's right. It appeals to what Abraham Lincoln used to say, the better angels of our nature. So striving to learn how to inspire and not just motivate is pretty important. Slide number 15. How will you earn trust, build confidence, and inspire action? Trust, competence, and vision. Just a question to analyze yourself, the 3 C's, hopefully when you're finished. If you were going to pick one thing, would you work on competence? Would you work on character, or would you work on? Slide 16. Emotional intelligence. Dan Goleman kind of put this topic on the map. It tells here that there's 4 sections. The first one is understanding yourself and managing yourself. And the second is helping them manage their emotions and mood are contagious, caught mainly from the immediate supervisor. One key point here, improve yourself in this particular area, is to recognize that all of us have triggers. It could be traffic, it could be a comment that certain individuals make, and suddenly our mood shifts from being confident and positive to angry or depressed. And the analogy we give is that when that happens, hunger fire, you just got hijacked. And transformational leader managers stay in control of their emotions, stay on the positive side, regardless of circumstances and the situation, and teach individuals around them to do the same thing. Slide 17. This completes the visual of the 5 things that make somebody a transformational leader and manager. It begins with positive psychology. It begins with what you think. It ends with how people feel. If people don't feel good, they're not going to do great work. The 3 things in the middle is you earn trust through your character, you build confidence through your confidence, and you inspire action through your vision. Slide 18. Now, after concluding the 5 components of leadership, we're going to talk a little bit about management. The process that enables a person to effectively manage resources to achieve a desired result. The organizing and controlling of the affairs of a business of business. There's a 4-step process to that, which we will go over in slide 20. Plan, organize, direct, and control. Slide 21. The plan is the goal. A manager might call it a goal. You might call it a vision. But it's where we're going. It also includes the strategy. How are we going to get there and when? Gallup has an engagement tool, really good. We've been using it for years. The most important thing they say a manager needs to do is communicate clear expectations. No matter where we go and do the survey, we find out that 40% of people do not strongly agree with what's expected of them. So this simple step of planning a clear goal is often overlooked. Slide 22, organize. This is the detail. Who does what? When do they do it? What tools, resources, training? This gets overlooked a lot. Particularly the resources. Neil says that the second most important thing a world-class manager does is provide the resources people need to be successful. And around the world, we see that this is the poorest score that we get in those 12 engagement things that Gallup has provided. Number 2, having the resources to be successful. And people feel like they do not have those resources. Slide 23 is the 3rd step of the management process. This is the direction piece. It's what keeps people on track. It gives mile markers, lets people know how they're doing. Where the motivation, where the direction, where the discipline, where the rewards, making it fun, giving timely feedback. Simple, but very, very often overlooked. Slide 24, the very best part of the management process. This is when we say, did we accomplish our objective? And if you didn't, reason falls under one of 2 areas. You either didn't execute your plan, you didn't have the vision. A lot of times it's a little of both. But more often than not, there's a failure to execute. So after action reviews, reassessing the plan and how well you executed it will enable you to make a better plan and then repeat the cycle. That takes us to our last slide, Steve. Back to the big picture. We have these 5 critical business outcomes, which we didn't spend a lot of time in, but we just wanted to communicate that a lot of organizations spend a lot of time doing things that are not that important. Those 5 critical things in the middle are essential. And the bottom of that critical 5 is the culture. What drives that culture is creating leaders at every level. And how you achieve that is you teach people to be leaders and managers. They manage through this process of planning, organizing, directing, and controlling. And they can apply each of those steps, they can apply positive psychology, character, confidence, vision, and emotional intelligence. Apply those things, and you will create leaders at every level, and you will achieve exceptional results, and you will change lives and make the world better. And that gives us, we accomplished our goal of going over the overview in 30 minutes, so can we open it up to questions and comments?
Hi, John. This is Steve. Yes, we'll give Sue a couple minutes to get everybody unmuted. We appreciate you doing this for us, and we'll ask you to call in afterwards, and we'll have some thoughts for this afternoon's webinar. This was a good overview of what a transformational manager is supposed to look like. I'm sure there are a few questions out there, so we're going to open it up and see who wants to say what. Anyone?
Well, this is Avis. I can start.
Okay.
Granted, I have not worked for a salary for the last few years, but I work in a lot of community organizations. But the sense I'm getting that is in this day and age, everybody is being asked to do more with less. And I also get the feeling that the caring component is kind of falling by the wayside a little bit, which is kind of unfortunate. I wondered if you could comment in this day and age how we can do a better job of making sure that the caring component is used.
That's a good question. My first reaction to that is that a simple thing that you can do to demonstrate or to improve your ability to demonstrate care is to spend a little more time just listening. And with everybody being stressed out, so much to do, that's often the first thing that comes off the plate. If you ask your typical manager, when do you have a planned one-on-one with the people that report to you, most of them don't have a plan. They're too busy to write down what they're doing. They're too busy to ask them what their goals are personally and professionally. So even in an environment where resources are scarce, if you took the time once a month to spend 10 minutes with each person, ask them questions about their personal and professional goals, and help them do that, even though they might look at the organization and say, hey, the organization isn't really caring for me, my supervisor cares for me, and that could make a difference in their performance.
Thank you.
Who else has a question?
Hi, John. This is Esther. Hi. I was wondering, so in the emotional intelligence, there's the 4 boxes there, and you mentioned know your triggers. So do you have any examples of that and examples of how maybe you can work with those triggers if you're aware of them yourself?
Well, that part falls under the first of the 2 parts, which is self-awareness. And if you take a little time to just think about, what bugs you, what irritates you, what makes you angry, what causes you to be fearful, what things happen that will shift your mood from one of positive to doubtful. And if you take enough time to think about that, you'll probably say, hey, to be honest with you, when I'm driving a car, sometimes I'm glad there's not a video camera or a recording in my vehicle when I'm by myself, because sometimes I act very immaturely and I'll lose my temper because someone else did something. They cut me off, or they didn't put on something silly. And I just have to say, I recognize that, or my wife will say something sometimes, and I'll snap at her, but I wouldn't snap at someone else. I don't know why I do that, but I have to recognize that. And then through reprogramming myself, for time, somebody can cut me up in traffic, or my wife can say something that used to bother me. It doesn't bother me anymore. I've learned to not let anybody hijack my plane.
Yeah, that's a hard lesson to learn.
It's hard. You're 100%. It's very, very hard.
Yeah.
It starts with just becoming aware of it and admitting this, and recognizing those situations when it occurs. That's the first part. And then practicing is the second part.
Another good question.
Thank you. Who else? Sounds like someone was trying to ask a question. You want to speak up? Okay, I'm not hearing a question. John, let me ask you. When you've done one of these workshops and you've been with people for a couple of days, what do people tell you they gain the most from or are thankful for coming? I'm not trying to do a commercial here. I'm really trying to get back to the whole subject here of transformational leader manager. What do people, when do the light bulbs come on? What do they say?
Well, you know, that's the whole thing. I just kind of realized this is the only second time I've done this webinar. This type of presentation, there's some value in saying, hey, this is a toolkit and they're non-negotiable, but letting people discover this themselves and telling me whether or not this is true and giving them an opportunity to think and to write and to talk to people in their small groups and to talk to people in the room. That's what people say over the years. A couple things. I'm not alone. Whatever I've been struggling with, people in the room have been struggling with this also. I thought I was the only one that believed this. So it's just kind of the community and peer learning that is the most profound. And people walk away saying, yeah, I believe this stuff. Somebody's not just telling me this stuff. Yes, this is true. I believe it. But if I'm honest with myself, I really haven't done all I could to take all this stuff that's in my head and turn it into new habits.
Thank you. That was a nice answer.
Thank you.
Hey, Steve, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Yes, hi. I actually had a question. In going over this content, I actually have gone through the PMP training certification process. I know they list several different management styles. Am I correct that this presentation really focuses on the servant manager style, or do you still think that it's a blending of the styles is needed based on the situation that the manager is in?
Well, I would say two things, that if you had to put it into a style, it would probably be very close to the servant leadership style. But what we attempted to do here is to eliminate style and to eliminate circumstance. So this is not situational leadership. This is not personality styles. This is not leadership style. So if we say, if you want the best out of people, you need to understand positive psychology and apply it. If you want the best out of people, you better be trustworthy. You better get people to believe they can. You better inspire, not just motivate. And you need to know that emotion, the final stopping off point is how people feel. Now you can be, in my opinion, you can be a variety of styles and apply those things in your way.
Gotcha. So basically, no matter what style you choose, you still need to make sure you adhere to these principles.
That's our argument. Now we're everybody's entitled to their opinion. But when you think about helping people, nothing changes until people change their thinking, and positive psychology is the best process I've come across to help do that. And if somebody doesn't trust you, game over. If they don't believe they're going to get there, they're not going to get there. If you don't unlock inspiration in addition to motivation, if you don't understand people's hearts and their emotions, so yes, our answer is regardless of your style, regardless of your personality, you still have to implement those 5 tool sets.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
This is Avis again. In all my years of working, one thing I found was some of the people to whom I reported who turned out to be the best leaders were the ones who always took the time to explain the why.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that I myself do to this day. And time again, people have said, we really appreciate the fact that you took the time to tell us the why, because just telling us the how, sometimes it turns us off, sometimes it pisses us off, but to know the why and the reasoning behind it goes a long way.
Absolutely. And they're doing two things at once. Number one, they're taking the time, and then that's a type of respect. It shows respect. The other thing, in this short format, we didn't have the time to do it. Another thing that the world's greatest managers do is they clearly communicate the what, and whenever possible, they allow the how to be determined by the individual.
Absolutely.
Now, a good manager will say, this is what I've done, this is what's worked for me. However, I trust you. If you want to take an intelligent risk, take an intelligent risk.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you.
John, do you find that in times of great organizational change that trying to be and pay attention to transformational leader-manager strategies makes all the difference in terms of how change is implemented?
Yeah, there's no question about that. And Gallup has proven that with their research when they take engagement scores and then they compare the engagement scores and they compare them to other business outcomes, whether it's productivity, customer service scores, et cetera, et cetera. And engagement score, high engagement scores just reflect good leadership. And I see that in every organization I've ever worked with. You go into this Walmart store, it's clean, it's in stock, it's making money, the people are happy to be there. You go to this Walmart store 5 miles away, none of those things are true.
Right.
It's the same company, but the people in that unit, you can go into the Gulf of Mexico and go to a deep water drill ship. Same thing. They're happy. You go to another drill ship, same company, both in the Gulf of Mexico, they don't want to be there.
And boy, is that true.
Management and leadership. Say that again.
That is certainly true in the food service industry.
I think it's true everywhere. I think it's true in hotels. I think it's true in, I mean, because, and again, I mean, I kind of started figuring this out 30 years ago, but when Gallup came out and first read all the rules, this was their first book on the subject, they just proved that the primary thing that causes an individual to perform at their best is their relationship with their immediate supervisor.
Yep.
And these 5 components that we're talking about, how to help the people think more positively, being trustworthy, building their confidence, inspiring their action, and taking their emotions under. Those are the things that build that relationship. So those people, they'll walk through fires for certain people. And other people, they'll just leave them hanging because they don't trust them.
All right, we have time for another couple of questions. Anyone? Going once? I have one last question for John, and that is, you deliberately titled this subject matter and these workshops Transformational Leader-Manager. You want to speak to that one just a little bit?
Yeah, it's just an overview of all the critical components that, regardless of your level in the organization, you must manage and you must lead. And you can do one well and the other poorly. We've seen good managers, but they're not good leaders. We've seen good leaders, but they're not good managers. And we've also seen leaders, but they're the wrong kind of leader. So we just wanted to capture the concept that there is a right kind of leadership. You can call it servant leadership if you want. You can call it inspirational leadership, but it's not a style. It's a kind. So that gives that produces great results and changes people's lives for the better, and they manage that process using those characteristics and competencies.
Great, thank you, John. All right, did that generate a question out there anywhere before we close? All right. Well, John, I want to thank you for doing this. To our listeners, I apologize for the audio problems. There won't be any charge for today's session. It's not fair to do that to you. And we'll work out something for this afternoon. But I think everybody got the gist of everything. Things improved along. It's an important topic. It's one you're going to be hearing more about. And John, you were most kind once again to take time out of your week with your family to come and spend a couple of hours with us today. So I want to thank you and thank all of our participants.
Thank you for having me. You all have a great day.
All right. Thanks, everyone.